never seen so clear. I feel the end and it's near. The day of reckoning's here. The sound of deafening fear.
You gon' die if you try. You just might get a little bit of trouble. K-N-I-F-E, right in your side. You would never see me coming. You gon' die if you try. You just might get a little bit of trouble. K-N-I-F-E, right in your side. You would never see me
My
coming.
energy is next level, so damn you better be careful. I got an angel and devil, he snaps me straight in the temple. I'm ready to be a rebel, I've got a lot of potential hidden inside of this vessel. That's
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Dane from NYYU. We'd like to welcome you to a special edition of the Yankee Farm Report. Rob from Pinstripes Chronicles, Bobby Malone, you know him, Nick Simmons, our IFA guy. How are you guys doing today?
Very well.
I'm good.
Good. It's nice to have you all back again. Well, first we wanted to jump in the show and talk about kind of the young kids at the major league level, what we're seeing from them. You know, Austin Wells has really been one of the best players, at least the best catchers in the American League over the last 2.5, 3 months. And he's making a run at Rookie of the Year. What do you guys see for his future going forward with him? Start with you, Rob.
I mean, it's so fun to watch because we watched him long enough in the minors do what he's doing, and knowing that he wasn't getting the at-bats that he should have been getting, they were going with Trevino so often. You just knew that once he got those consistent at-bats, you were going to see a better player because you knew the kind of bat he was. In the minors, everyone talked about, oh, he could be a left-handed Gary Sanchez. You heard that from time to time. But his defense got better, and you've seen that all year. His defense has been good. Now his defense, you can say, is one of the best in all of baseball behind the plate. And now his bat's coming along. The power's there. The fact that he's doing it in the middle of the order, protecting Aaron Judge, and in a sense, he's in front of Giancarlo Stanton now. He's kind of protecting him too, and it makes the lineup better. And the way he's swinging the bat, he looks like he can't be stopped. And it just kind of it makes us fans that we're all like lobbying for him to get at bats every day, makes us feel proud of ourselves in a sense. We're proud of him, of course, but we're proud of ourselves. It's like listen to us a little bit. We were patting our own backs, but no, it's fun, man. He's killing it, and I'm so glad to see him do it. And I would hope that the Yankees learn from this and go with, instead of this platoon that they usually do behind the plate, go with the better guy as much as you can. Obviously, catchers are not going to play every day, but you want to go with the better player as much as you can. And clearly Austin Wells is the best option.
Bobby, how about you?
I agree with everything you just said. I mean, my only fear about everything is how they view the catcher position, right? And I don't trust them, in terms of, Trevino's back tonight. He's starting tonight. That comfort level that the pitching staff has. I'm not saying they don't have that with Wells. I think Wells' bat is going to play. I think what we need to think about is how do we get Wells' bat in there like daily. And what I mean by that is you can't DH on the days that he's off because they're not going to do that. I always have that fear in my mind that, is his future at first base. And I know that sounds crazy. Like everything he's doing right now is great, right? But that bat could be something that's a special bat that he has always hit. He hit in college. I think his career OPS in the minors is over 800. It is, right? So he's a hitter. He could do that. Are they going to save the wear? Do they want the wear and tear that the catching position, lays out on you? Do they want to put that on him, or would they shift him to first base? Now, like I said, I am not saying that I want that, that it could happen. I just know how much value they look at the catcher position in terms of defense, calling the game, and I don't know if. He kind of reminds me, like I mentioned a couple of weeks ago when Posada came out. They eased him along, and then they had to play him every day because of the bat. So I think the bat could be a special bat. Here's a good thing: like we have 40 more games, right, to the end of the year. How many games does he catch? That's what I'm looking at. I mean, does he catch 34, which would be like once a week off, or is he going to be in the 20 level because they just feel more comfortable with Trevino? That's something I'm really watching going into next year.
We heard from Aaron Boone the other day, though, that he said on Foul Territory that he expected Wells to get the lion's share of the at bats, that Trevino would start tonight, but that's because there's a day night game. But
Yeah.
do you think that that's true? Do you think he's just blowing smoke for us because we're all pushing for Wells? What do you guys think?
I
Nick,
don't.
go ahead.
I was going to
Sorry.
quickly say I don't trust anything that like that because I know how much they value the framing. And like I said, I am not knocking Wells, right? I think Wells, we have never had a complaint so far, but I
No.
do have that fear in the back of my brain about what they could be doing.
Nick, what about you?
If I'm not mistaken, is Wells number one in the league right now in framing?
I believe he is.
Yeah.
At
So I
least,
mean, the Yankees, man, at the end of the day, man, have had a rich history of catchers. And Austin Wells looks very, very good behind the plate, and he's on a crazy tear. And I hope he finishes as the rookie of the year over Heel, and that because it helps us as a team. It helps us in the long run more than it does with Heel. Um,
yeah.
and I don't know if he will. It depends if Heel has a meltdown too towards the end of the season. But what I will say, man, is I like everything I've seen from him from behind the catch as a catcher, man. Everybody said he couldn't catch, he wasn't going to stick there. I have no interest in even talking about moving him, period, or anything along those lines. I don't even think they're having any conversation about that either. He's their guy behind the plate, and I think if anything, he's going to probably catch around 30 games. I could see them giving him about Trevino probably around like 10 games here, and putting him at their 3 out of 4, 75%. But I mean, I like everything I see from him, and I don't want to move him. And I think he's probably been our best young player, rookie wise, this year. So,
I think he's been our best young player, period.
In the past few years.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, moving on to, I know Volpe's been in the major leagues a little bit longer, but he's still a young player. We're seeing him struggle again. And there's starting to be legitimate questions. We're pretty deep into year 2. What are your guys' thoughts on Anthony Volpe? Where does he stay at shortstop? Do they look to move him to second base at some point? What is that situation for you guys? Nick, start with you.
all right, man. So I'll start like this. So, long story short, man, I think we had this conversation yesterday. At bat wise, I mean, he's looked probably a little bit better than I would say last year outside of walks and just home runs. I mean, he has 10 less home runs right now at this point. He's walking a little bit less, but I think everything else, man, has pretty much been on par with what it was last year, if not better. I mean, he has 125 hits to 113 hits last year, and the season's not even done. He played 159 games last year. Look, I said it before, man. In any sport you ever talk about, any of the 4 major sports, the year number 3 is always the most important year, right? And then you always see like you'll have the rookie, so everybody doesn't really blank the rookie, but you have that sophomore wall where you hit a wall sometimes in the second year, and then the third year is where people pop, And if we're having this conversation next year, I think it's more of a conversation to have. I think right now, man, I'm comfortable with what he's done. He's had his ups and his downs, but he hasn't hurt us tremendously in any way, shape, or form. Thrown out to a three WAR right now. I mean, I'm gonna take that from a kid there. And like I told you before, if we're gonna lose him at shortstop, it's gonna be because of Roderick Arias came up and just destroyed, man. And I told you that before. Like he's not gonna stop Roderick Arias. He's not gonna stop Lombard if Lombard is proper position at shortstop, and he's not gonna stop somebody like Wandy Asijan if he comes up and just clutches out. He's just not going to stop those kind of players, man. And they'll move him to second base if they have to. But right now, I think he's done fine at shortstop.
Bobby?
I think the way we, as fans view him, like Nick just said, is different how like they view him, right? And I always I make the Brett Gardner comparison. Like if you're pulling 3 or 4, even 5 WAR, whether it's on the defense side, on the offense side. I think we just had I think the problem is we came in with such high expectations, like really high. And we watch other shortstops now around the league maybe exceed that.
Yeah.
In Gunner and other ones that we're waiting for him to reach that level. I think what we have to understand is if the defense is there, And, I don't think he's more than maybe a 750, maybe an 8 in a great year, 800,
Mhm.
OPS. But if he's going to be doing, 10 to 15 home runs, 25 to 30, that's what you're going to be getting. You're not going to get, but that's what like pretty much Brett Gardner was, right? And
Right.
he finished his career with a 44 career WAR. So, I mean, who could, we're talking about replace. I don't even, I don't like, I don't think that's something that they're considering right now. I think right now we just have to lower our expectations. He's not the player that he was when he was in Double A, and he was struggling in Double A, and then kicked it on. Could he spend more time in Triple A? I don't think at this point right now. I don't think it makes a difference. He is what he is, and we have to
Right.
accept what he is. And in a good lineup, he's an 8th or 9th place hitter.
See, my biggest concern with what I'm seeing from Volpe is the on base percentage and the lack of
Yeah.
stealing bases. That was a huge part of his game in the minor leagues. His speed. That's where he creates a lot of value. And we're not seeing that right now. So I think that if they can get some adjustment where he can get on base a little bit more and let him run, I think he's probably a very good player, not a great player, solid role player. But that's just my take. Rob, how about you?
It's interesting to me with Volpe because when the season started, he was on fire, like the first
Right.
8 games or so. Then they moved him to the leadoff spot and he struggled. Then he caught fire again. And then he struggled again. And then he was heating up again once we got back from the break. And now he's struggling again ever since the foot injury, the little foot injury he had. So you wonder if maybe that's affecting him. But I think overall, he's still only 23. His second year has been better than his first year. He could have another 2020 season. He might fall just short of it, but still back-to-back 2020 seasons would be just fine. His defense has been a lot better, and he won a gold glove last year. So I think overall it's been okay. It certainly could be better. You've seen the good and you've seen the bad. He is striking when he's struggling, he's striking out. His at bats are kind of ugly, but when he's on fire, he's pulling the ball, he's spraying the ball all over the field, and you know that he has it in him because we've seen it in spurts this year where he looked really good. And you're like, that's the shortstop. That's the guy that we gave the job to instead of signing the Seagers and Correas of the world. But then when he struggles, you're like, why didn't we sign the Correas or the Seagers? And you kind of get that imbalance almost with him. I think once he finds more consistent at bats at the bottom of the order, I think he needs to stay there. If that's where he's going to be an 8 or 9 hitter, league average OPS, and even if he's a league average bat with the plus glove at shortstop, you're going to take that because like we mentioned earlier, like has been mentioned earlier, if you have a good lineup, you're not going to be looking for too much production from the 8 and 9 spots. So if
Right.
Volpe can be a potential 15 to 20 home run guy with 20 or more stolen bases, really good defense shortstop, they're going to take that. Is it what we expected out of him and maybe what he was hyped up to be? Probably not, but that hype wasn't necessarily fair to him. The second this kid got the job, he was getting comparisons to Jeter, and that was just unfair from the jump. And you cannot compare someone to Derek Jeter because that's like the cream of the crop in terms of Yankee land, especially for this current generation of fans. We all
Right.
grew up watching Jeter. You can't compare somebody to that guy. But I think, like Nick mentioned, year 3, if he's doing this again, there's going to be more conversation. But I do think he's going to be better. And if he's a league average shortstop, at least offensively with a good glove, you're going to take that. Again, it's not what everyone hopes for in a top number 1 prospect, but it's better than being an absolute dud. And he is far from a dud. I think he's got a lot of potential to be even better. He's only 23, plenty of room to grow. So I think overall he's been just fine, but there is definite room for improvement.
I want to
Agreed.
touch one thing too. One thing too that he said, man. The only thing that he really has to improve on is his walks. If he can do that, I don't really care too much about the power because if he's going to hit 15, 20 power home runs, like you said, it's really just the walking. If he gets the walking down again, like he was in the minor leagues in 2021, 2022, we're back to talking about a kid that's, an elite prospect that was coming up in top 5, top 10 in the game. I mean, that's really all we're waiting on is just to see if, he will stop swinging at sliders outside, or fastballs up out of the zone. I mean, if he can cut that down and start taking a little bit more walks, he's fine.
Well, talking about the shortstop position, the guy that Anthony Volpe won the job over, Oswald Peraza, just got called up again. What are you guys expecting from him? Rob, we'll start with you.
I just want to see him play. I don't know where they're going to play him. They've they've had plenty of chances in the last 2 seasons to give this guy playing time, and we've talked about this before, Dane, on camera and off camera. We don't know what their plan is with him. I think right now it's even difficult to say he should be playing at third because Cabrera's been a little bit hot and his glove has been okay. Second base, you're not going to move Glaber off of that because his bat's actually been a lot better. It hasn't been out of this world good, but he has been
Right.
much better since we got to the second half. So I think the only thing right now is his role is just utility off the bench, unless there's an injury again, which hopefully there isn't. I don't want to see another player go down, but I just want them to give him maybe at least a week of just consistent playing time just to see what he can be, because early on he was dealing with the injury. He struggled mightily out of the gate, but over the last like month or so, he was tearing it up in AAA. And I was just thinking, how is this guy going to get up here again and be given a shot? Well, the injury occurred, the Jazz, and you're thinking, okay, now he's got third base open, but Cabrera's playing well. So where does
He
that leave?
is.
Is he just a bench guy at this point? Because if he is, he might be trade bait, or is he just a speed guy off the bench for the postseason, depending on how long Jazz is out for? I want to see him get playing time, whether that's at third or second, or even to give Volpe a day off and play him at short. But for right now, I just don't see where the playing time is going to come. If Glaber keeps hitting and Cabrera keeps playing the way he is, and I just don't see them using him much more as just a bench guy, maybe similar to how they use Jahmai Jones, and just use him for his speed late in the game. That might be his role right now.
Bobby?
I agree. I mean, I don't think we see that much of him. I think they're going to probably start him. I think their next 9 games, they have 4 lefties between Detroit and Colorado. I think he probably sees 3 of those games at least. But depending on how long Jazz is out, I mean, I know that so far they've been kind of bullish and think it's about a month. So we're looking probably like the second week of September, maybe the third week. I don't know what his future is. I don't think he has a future with the
Right.
Yankees. I mean, it's going to be like Estevan when they got rid of him over the winter for Morris. It's that his status, even though he's young, I don't know if it's about. I think more do they trust him, and I don't know if they trust him. So
Right.
the way that Cabrera's been playing, I mean, I don't know how you could sit him, but due to the lefties coming up, they'll probably give him some burn. But in the next month, if does he get like 7 games in, maybe 6 games? I don't think more than that.
Gotcha. Nick?
I really would like to see him play second. I would like to see them give him a chance, man. Gleyber Torres really hasn't performed at all this year. I mean, been basically non-existent for the most part. And I've been like we've had these conversations on here before, man. Seeing him be moved last year would have been the right move. But yeah, I would like to see him get an opportunity. I agree with them. I don't know if he's going to get any chance at third base because you still got LeMahieu, so you're either going to bench, Peraza or Rice for him. So I just don't see where they're going to make that move. I mean, um, yeah, I'm with everybody else, man. I just don't know if he has that playing time, but I wish that they would give him some and kind of see what we have there.
Well, you bring up an interesting point about second base. Obviously, I think all four of us agree that Gleyber Torres is likely gone next year. And if they sign Juan Soto, we know that they're not going to go out and sign a big ticket free agent for second base. So your three leading candidates are Caleb Durbin, Jorbit Vivas, and Oswald Peraza. What do you guys see happening there? Nick, start with you.
It's hard, man. It's a hard one. I think they like Caleb Durbin. Like I said, I said it before. I think he would have been up had he not been injured. With the way he was going, and he still returned. He looks good too. I'll be honest with you, man. It's a hard one because I think they like Vivas too because they may obviously made that deal for Trey Sweeney around him. Um, I don't know, man. It's the hardest question. I'm gonna go if I had to guess though. I would probably say Caleb Durbin.
Yeah. Bobby?
I agree. I mean, the reason why I say that is the reports and who they're coming like Heyman is saying, I hate when they compare him to like because of the size to Altuve, right? But that's something that's like Heyman, and I think there's the other guy from the news who are also saying the thing. That means they're getting the information from the Yankees that they're pretty high on Durbin. But I think between Durbin, Jorbit, and even Oswaldo, I think we don't know how the next 40 games is going to go for Cabrera, right? He
Right.
can go on a streak that you don't want to. I think they like him better, of course, on the bench and playing everywhere. But between the, I think, like Nick said, I think it's going to be between the two guys in AAA, and maybe, like I said, oh, and you got to remember who else is coming back that's still on the contract.
Birdie.
Birdie, yeah. So it's going to be, I mean, you're going to have probably four guys going into spring training, and due to cost, they're going to have the ability, and you have Jazz. So you have five guys in two positions. Somebody may be sitting the bench, somebody may be traded, somebody may be getting demoted. I don't know if Jorbit is out of options.
I think he is after this year.
So
Who?
is Jorbit out of
Jorbit.
options?
No, I think this is his second year
Okay.
so he would have one more.
Okay, so
Okay.
then that's I mean, like I said, I don't off the top of my head, but that's something that we could consider. So that, and of course, if it's Durbin going back, Durbin's going to be 25, Jorbit's going to be I think 24 next year. Cabrera is going to be 26, Jazz is 27. I mean, Birdie's in his 30s, but he's going to be on the bench. So they do have options and they do have depth. I would be totally shocked if they went outside those five guys to fill an infield position this winter.
Absolutely. Rob, what about you?
Yeah, they like Durbin a lot, but the fact that they used him in multiple positions during the spring and even this year makes you wonder what they view him as. Do they view him as another Cabrera potentially or another utility guy? We know they like to have a bunch of guys that can play all over the place. To me, I think Vivas might be the leader in terms of that group, but again, anything can change when it comes to the spring. I was very upset, as were a lot of people, when they called him up for 3 games and didn't play him. I thought, what was the point of that? But that's another conversation. I think that his bat certainly has come around as well. But Durbin, the fact that he had such a good spring, got hurt, came back, and it's almost like he never missed a beat. You would
Right.
think that maybe propels him over the others. But the fact that he does give you the ability to play multiple positions. He can play left field if need be. He can play right field, I'm sure, if they wanted to. And that gives them versatility as opposed to Vivas is either second or third, and Peraza can play the infield except for first. So that makes you wonder if Durbin's role is trade or bench, because I believe he's Rule 5 eligible coming into next year. So that's a decision they'll have to make. Do they look to move him if they have to go the cheaper route? Like we know they're going to go after signing Soto, assuming they get him back. They're not going to do much else except for adding some pieces to this bullpen that's going to need it. So they might have to use some pieces like Durbin as a trade chip, Peraza as a trade chip to add some cheap arms. That's a way to get the bullpen fixed a little bit. But you might have to look to move some of that infield depth that we do have, because we're talking about 5 guys that are going to be under contract that could easily start going into next season at 2 different positions. So someone's going to be the odd man out. Might be Peraza, it might be Durbin. I think they like Vivas a lot, but Durbin, the way he's playing, he's opening eyes. Clearly, you wonder if they stick him at just one position, which would be probably the smart thing to do. Keep him in the infield, because I don't know how many outfielders we're going to need, especially if we got Soto back and Spencer Jones is still lurking in the minor leagues.
Right.
It makes me wonder right there. Are they saying that, all that talk with these, to build his trade value, or it's one of two things. They really like him, or they're trying to build the trade value. I also wonder, maybe you guys would know, he was in the Arizona Fall League and he missed time this year. Can he go back again, or is there a rule where you can't go 2 years in a row? Because I wonder with him, and I know, Jorbit missed some time too. Wonder if they're playing some winter ball this year to get some more at bats, because they did lose some time this year, and what their progress is in the winter seasons.
Yeah, I don't
Nick,
think there's any rule. Yeah, I don't
What's
think there's
that?
any rule that you can't go back
Okay.
2 years in a row. I don't know if they'll send him there again though, because I feel like he's so close to the majors. And the thing
Okay.
that I know that they'll definitely like a lot about him, man, is one speed. They need a leadoff hitter. If they can get a leadoff hitter there, he provides a ton of speed and he walks more than he strikes out. He's the one
Double.
player that walks way more than he strikes out. So, that's somebody that I just don't see how, they're not going to give him an ability or a chance. And I think Jordan Vivas, man, I think he's hitting what, under 220 now. Let me take a look at this. But I think he's hitting under 220 on the year at AAA going forward. If not, pretty close though, 230. So he's hitting 230 on the year at
Yeah.
AAA. So he's not killing it. And he he's pretty close in strikeout and walk rate, and so he has that as well, and he knows the strike zone pretty well. But I think that Durbin's just your guy, man, going forward. I think, and the Yankees usually give those kids that opportunity, the little speedster kids that they like, that are like little rats, they're just everywhere. So
No, I
See,
mean he's got some pop too. I mean, let's be honest, right? He's missed some time. He's got like 40 more games himself. He's, I think, I don't know, 5 home runs maybe, right?
six. I think he hit his sixth the other
Okay.
night.
So I mean, if he, I mean, like, pretty much, let's be honest, he's like a vote like Anthony Volpe, right? I mean, you're
Right.
talking about 10, 15 power. The thing that blows my mind, and I might be wrong, you might have stats out. I think he's got like 25 or 26 strikeouts, and he's got like
Uh-huh.
42 or 44 walks. That's
Yep.
unheard of, like around the game. I mean, the only, and I hate making comps because I don't think that to me, he reminds me more of Pedroia when he came up back in the
Yeah.
minor leagues. I remember when he used to play down over here by me and Trenton, and how he was the same kind of player, more walks, a little pop, speed, but does the little things. Like he does the little things that you need. And Nick was just, they need that. They don't truly, I mean, if you think about it, if you put him in the lead, we're talking about best case, right? This is
Right.
absolute, but best case, if he just became a solid, he could control the strike zone, get on base. But if he gets that in the major, that gives you the ability to move Dominguez down into the lineup and have, maybe do more protection for other hitters while having the power and the pop.
You bring up Jason Dominguez. That's where I wanted to go next. We've seen him starting to really, really heat up in AAA. Obviously, we're probably not going to see him till September. But do you guys believe that he's going to be on the playoff roster? What do you think his role is going to be? Because Alex Verdugo, let's be honest, has not been very good lately. And with Jazz being out, they kind of need a spark. So what do you do with Jason Dominguez in September? Rob, we'll start with you.
If it was up to me, he'd be up right now. Like you said, I haven't seen much of anything from Verdugo. I know I think he had a hit in the last game against Chicago, but overall, he's been bad for a good 2 month stretch now. Like just bad. The defense hasn't been as good as it once was. His at bats have been bad. He admitted it himself that he's being lazy. I mean, that's never a good look. And he's getting the most at bats in this lineup. I thought that they would have looked to move him at the deadline just to try to get something for him, and that would have
They
opened up the
did.
lane. They did try to move him, and I thought they could have, and that would have opened up the lane that they like to use that word a lot for Dominguez to get up here. He's starting to hit again. When he came back from the injury, he was a bit of a slow start, but lately his at bats have been a lot better. I think this guy has all the potential to be a leadoff hitter, but like Bobby just said, if Durbin's here and he's your leadoff guy, that allows you to move Dominguez down because he's got the pop that you would love to have right between Judge and Soto. So if there was ever a time to do it, it'd be now, but they're more than likely going to wait till September. But if he's here, he's got to play every single day. And I don't think they're going to do that with him like they do with other prospects. I think when they do get him here, he's going to get as much playing time because Grisham hasn't done necessarily much to warrant playing time as well. So I think when they do eventually call up Dominguez, he's going to be playing every day, whether that's in left field or center field. And if that gets him on the playoff roster, I think you have to be called up by September 1st to be eligible. So hopefully they do that and get him here because I'd much rather have him than Verdugo at this point. And that's just because Verdugo has really just soured a lot of us with the way he's played and his actions and the way he's played the game. And even his post-game comments have been you don't want to hear that kind of stuff. So and with a guy like Dominguez, a top prospect, now he's healthy and you're waiting. It's like, what else do you need to see to get him up here? I'm hoping that it's sooner than later, but I'm guessing September is when we see him.
Bobby?
Yeah, I'm looking at the calendar right now. I think, he's going to be called up in September. The problem is, I heard Cash last Sunday when he was on the GM show, and when he was talking about, he was very like laissez-faire, like, yeah, he's doing great down there. We need to, find a lane for him. And right now his lane is being in the minor leagues, blah, blah, blah. I think they realize that, and especially in the next couple of weeks of the bats picking up and Verdugo, there was a report today that he has blisters on his hands the whole season, and he was allergic to the batting glove or whatever. Whatever it is, you need to get your engine started for October. So I think probably the only thing that worries me is because rosters can only expand by 2 people, and you're bringing back a lot of people. Rizzo might be back, Birdie might be back. I'm not even talking about the relief pitchers, right? Hamilton, Efros, Schmidt. You got to have roster spots for these people, right? And how we're gonna balance that. What scares me is that they either it's gonna be one of 2 ways. They're gonna totally ignore him, like he doesn't come up at all, or he comes up and he has to play every day. And could that mean they DFA, Trent Grisham because they don't want to pay his $7 million next year? Might as well get rid of him. I don't know that, because you want that defense in October. So it's going to be a really hard thing, especially, and you pray everybody is healthy come September. But with 2 roster spots and all these names I mentioned, is really finding, I hate to say that lane that could put him into it. But I think in the back of their minds, they know what he could bring to the table. Like if he came up now, he would lead off, let's be honest. Right. And they don't have that kind of dynamic right now. Plus, with his pop that Verdugo or Trent Grisham has given them. Like they gave them so much space, so much rope, so much runway, as he always says. But what have they produced? Like these past couple nights in Chicago, without Juan Soto, they could have lost 2 of those games.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that Jason is the end all to be all, but that spark that you might need getting into October is something that I think, if they're sensible enough, know that is there. The question is there room for him? When there was, you could bring up 40, the whole 40 man, that's a little different. A little different now with only 2 spots.
Nick, what about you?
Well, Rob said something that wasn't accurate. I just want to address that. Like he said that if the player is on the 40 man, has to be up before September. It's not accurate. It's just if a player comes from another team or we got somebody, then that's that. But he's pretty much spot on what he was saying, just a little off on there. But with Dominguez, man, like I've been on Dominguez for a long, long time, man. I love Dominguez. I've heard from numerous scouts to say he's the best player they ever saw in Dominican Republic. He's a kid that a lot of them were hoping he'd be the Yankees captain. That's how high they value him. And I can see the scenario playing out where they bring him up mid-September. I think he makes the team, so on and so forth, to hold him down enough bats so that next year he still qualifies as a rookie, so they can try to get that extra draft pick as well, because he'll be on a top 100 prospect list. New York is going to try to play it smart. I think they have their value. I don't think you see Verdugo back obviously next year, so he's going to play. And like you guys are saying, if he when he comes up, he's not a kid that's going to sit. They're going to play him 100%. So there's no sit there. It's a lot like Volpe. If they're going to pull a kid up that's top 20 ever in a prospect, they're playing them. So yeah, I think that's a scenario. What I think happens is probably mid-September, so they can hold his bats back a little bit, and then I think he will be on the major league roster come playoff time.
For me, he's got to be on this playoff roster if they're very serious about winning this year. He's one of the 9 best hitters in that system to me, and you just need that dynamic. He's a big stage, bright lights guy. Every time that he's been in an all-star game, a futures game, gone up a level, he has shined. And I think the same thing will carry forward into the playoffs. But Bobby brought up Anthony Rizzo coming back. Ben Rice has been struggling pretty bad for the last month. Do we think that he's going to go down? Do you guys see him coming back as the first baseman next year? What do you guys think that they do there? Nick, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think he comes back next year as a first baseman. I think that's a guarantee. I think like they did, I could see them replacing Anthony Rizzo when he comes back. I mean, they've kind of showed their, I'm not gonna say showed their ass here, but basically showed their ass that they're not gonna be playing this dude going forward the rest of this year, man. I mean, they benched him pretty much now for DJ LeMahieu. Um, so yeah, I think once Rizzo comes back, if he does come back, it's gonna be his position to lose. And if Rizzo pops off, I think they might try to bring him back, but not at the price tag. So they might cut him for like maybe 10 million coming back. But yeah, I think Ben Rice, it if not doesn't comes back, it's his position next year to lose.
Agreed. Bobby?
Yeah, I mean, let's see if he plays tonight, right? I mean, like I said, we have 4 left-handers next 9 games. You know he's going to sit those games. I think, if Rizzo is back in September, they're going to play him. That's just how it is. And that's why I always think about like Wells moving to like, do they truly believe in Ben Rice? If they give him the rope and they believe in him, yeah, then he's going to be back here. But don't be surprised comes, springtime, it's DJ LeMahieu and Ben Rice at first base because they're not going to get rid of DJ over this winter with $45 million to go. They're not eating $45 million.
It would be 30, I think.
Or $30 million that's left, right? They're not eating $30 million just yet. So, do they platoon next year first base again? There's a possibility. I just wonder, this is the whole thing. How much do they believe in the prospect? They believe Anthony Volpe, right? They believe in him 100%. There's no doubt. And they believe in Dominguez. How much do they believe in these other people? I think now they start to believe in Wells. I don't know if I have that feeling, with Rice. Like I said, let's see how he plays. Let's see if he starts tonight, right?
Right.
But you need, if you look at his metrics page, there's a lot of red. Like how many balls has he hit that have been caught that he's just having bad luck. So, he's hit all through his minor league career. And I'm not asking for him to be an 800 hitter. I'm asking 700s, which I think he probably will be. It's just, do they give him the chance to do that? And that's my thing, I hope that they give him some runway, but right now, I don't know if this is the time.
I don't know if they do it right now, but for me,
Yeah.
I watched Ben Rice very carefully last year because he just came out of nowhere for me when he hit 323 with 20 home runs in the second half. To me, I think his bat's a little bit better than Austin Wells is. Whether it adjusts to the major league level, I'm not sure about that yet, but Ben Rice has improved his hitting. He hit 190 against left-hand hitters last year in the minor leagues. He hit close to 292 this year. So I think there's room for improvement at the major league level. He's just got to figure it out.
The lineup just came out. He's not playing.
That tells you a lot.
So tonight, LeMahieu's batting. Like clockwork, they're sitting Cabrera tonight, and they play Peraza. So, like I said the other day, watch him sit tonight, and they sit him. Has a great game on Wednesday night. Saves the team, and they sit him.
Yeah. Rob, what about you? I know you were a big Ben Rice believer coming into the year. What do you think so far?
We've seen the good and we've seen the struggles, but let's not forget he's only been here for basically a cup of coffee in the league. It's not even half a year, not even close to half a year playing time that he has. He's been more productive, you could argue, than Rizzo was in half the time. I mean, that 1-3 home run game was almost as productive as Rizzo was for the entire season. And his defense has been pretty solid over there at first base, considering he was transitioned from catcher. I do believe that they would send him down, though, when Rizzo is healthy. It just seems like that's the case. When you're getting benched for lefties constantly for a guy like DJ, who is barely hovering, I don't even know if you could say he's above water right now with the way he's playing this year. The fact that they're willing to go with DJ at first base over Rice tells you a lot about how they feel. they platooned him almost immediately. Like they called him up and he was a platoon guy. I don't know what they view Ben Rice as in the future, but for that price tag that's on Rizzo, and we talked about the Soto contract earlier and what that means for the offseason, Ben Rice could have the inside track to first base next year. So could TJ Rumfield. There's another guy out there that's having a pretty solid year in AAA. So I don't know if they bring back Rizzo, but like Nick said, if Rizzo has this incredible September and we go on a run of the playoffs and he's a big reason for it, wouldn't surprise me if Rizzo's back. And what does that mean for Ben Rice? Is he a trade chip? Is he a AAA bat? What is he going to be? But I don't think we've seen enough to judge what he can be, because we've seen flashes of it. 3 home runs in one game. You're like, this, he just Wally pipped Anthony Rizzo. But then over his last like 15 or 30 games, he looks lost. And he has run into some bad luck, similar to what Austin Wells was doing earlier this year. And like Bobby said, you look at his Savant page, there's a lot of red. He hasn't qualified for a lot of those stats, but he is making solid contact, which is usually a telltale sign of a guy getting ready to turn around. But if he's getting platooned, when are we going to see that turnaround? So I think we kind of have a sense of what the Yankees might feel about him, but next year could change things depending on what they do with Rizzo.
Right. I agree. We saw Will Warren have a really good start against Chicago. You know, there was a comparison on Pitching Ninja to him to Michael King. And boy, that was a scary close comparison. I think we're going to see him for a couple more starts, but I think that there's a strong possibility that they may put him in the bullpen towards the end of September and see if he can't get outs there, just like they did last year in AAA. He pitched to below a 1 ERA out of the bullpen in the AAA last year. I think he can benefit this team in that role, especially with as weak as our bullpen is right now. And also, we have Luis Gil, who had a bad start, and he finally looked tired. He finally looked like the arm was dragging a little bit. What do they do with those two for the next month? And where do they end up in the playoff picture? Start with Rob.
I think for the next month and a half or so, you might think about piggybacking off each other. We got to factor in Clark Schmidt. When does he come back, and what is his limit going to be when he does come back? Because we know if he's healthy, Clark Schmidt's going to get a lot of starts probably in October, right? He might be your third most trusted starter, and he's not even back from the IL yet. That's how rough it's been watching Stroman. We don't know what the limit's going to be for Gil. And again, Nestor Cortez, is he the guy we saw against Chicago, or is he the guy we've been seeing for the past couple of months that had a near 8 ERA? So there's kind of this trust that you have to work. What is the trust fund, so to speak, for this Yankees rotation? I wouldn't mind seeing a kind of a Gil Warren piggyback situation where maybe Gil gets a couple of innings, 2 or 3, if they want to limit him. They never put out a number out there, but you got to figure his limit could be coming soon. They might maybe move him down just to sit him a little bit. I don't know what they're going to do, give him some rest, and then you start Warren there. But I like the idea of Warren coming out of the bullpen because, like you said, our bullpen's bad. They just called up Meza today. And I don't know. That's another Blake project. Is he going to be Jake Cousins? Is he going to be De Los Santos type? Who knows? I don't know what's going to go on there. But if Warren can be a Michael King type, and we have a lot of guys that could have fit that role. I thought Beater would have been perfect for that this year, but unfortunately he's hurt. If Warren can be that guy, that would be fantastic. I still think he's got a chance to be a solid middle of the rotation type of arm. That might be his ceiling, but if he can find that role in the bullpen that can give you 2 to 3 innings on, at least once a week or every couple of days, he can do that like Michael King was. That's perfectly fine. And I liked his stuff the other night, and to see him bounce back, he got blasted in that second start of his against the Angels, but then he bounced back. I know it's the White Sox, but to see a young player bounce back like that, that's important. And he had his stuff working in the months of June and July. He really struggled early on this year. Like he was bad, and there was questions of whether
I think he had a 17 ERA in May.
Yeah, it was brutal. And to see him have much, much better numbers in June and July, specifically July, he had a good start against a great lineup, struggled against a bad team, and then pitched much better against another bad team. So you saw him have a quick recovery. That's a good sign. And I really do feel like he's better than any of these dumpster dive finds you could possibly have. So I would hope that he's part of this bullpen come September because he does have good stuff. And that pitch mix will help him, I feel, more out of the bullpen.
Agreed. Bobby?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be quite interesting what they do with Heal the next couple days because we have days off. So do they skip him? Do they give him some time in the bullpen? I just was doing some rough calculations. I think he could possibly make 7 more starts until the end of the year. Do they bring that down to 5 starts? So he goes like about 140, 150 innings. Warren, I think, listen, I said to you guys a few weeks ago,
You
would it
did.
shock me if they made 5 starts to the end of the year and he's got 3 and I assume he's probably going to make a few more when they start breaking people and rotating around in September. But the fact is, they're preparing him for next year. I mean, I don't think they're going to be paying, Cortez $7+ million. So you need that pen depth. I think just give the kid time. Whether he's getting ready for an October roll. I don't know if they trust him to that extent yet, but I do think, this is just, it's great getting your feet wet. I think I don't really care what the numbers are, what he does, right? Because he had
Right.
that crappy game against the Angels. He did great in Chicago. I didn't know it's the White Sox. What you want him to do is have just the experience to build for 2025.
Nick, what about you?
I mean, my favorite start for him was against the Phillies. I feel like
Yeah.
he dominated, man. He threw one bad pitch, and that's the difference between him giving up 4 earned runs and really just one and a dominant performance. I mean, the game against Los Angeles, you could say that he kind of got squeezed a little bit on the mound too. That umpire wasn't giving him anything because that one pitch that he walked Schnall on before he gave up that grand slam was a strike. You know what I mean? And that could have changed the whole dynamics of the entire at bat. Um, I like Will Warren, man. I've been saying the same thing for a while. I feel like it is Mike King all over again, man, and that's kind of why the Yankees felt like they could move Michael King because they had another Michael King. The slider is very similar. The fastball plays, but it doesn't move probably as much as Michael King's. But I'll be honest with you, man. I like everything that I see from Will Warren. From a standpoint, did he get shelled? Yes, it happens. First game in Yankee Stadium, the nerves are going to be there, I'm sure. I couldn't even imagine. But I've liked what I saw, and I think that the piggyback thing that Rob said is pretty much spot on, man. I think that they were going to do that with Luis Hill and cut his innings down. I could see him making all 7 starts, but just cutting the innings down to like maybe 3 or 4 tops, and not really going far into games to manage his innings the rest of the way before the postseason starts.
Keep him in his routine so he's comfortable if they need him as a starter in the playoffs. I agree with that. Now, moving into the minor league system a little bit, we're talking about all the depth that we have in the starting rotation, and we have just a ton of pitchers that are sitting between AAA, AA, and even some in high A that could possibly impact this roster next year. You have Zach Messenger, obviously Will Warren, Ben Shields, Tristan Vreeling, Bailey Dees, the list. Clayton Beater's going to be back. What are we doing with all those pitchers? We just drafted 13 more. And as Bobby's going to tell us here in a minute, we in our top 30 list, we have 20 pitchers in the top 30. So what is the plan? Are they going to use those guys to rebuild the bullpen? Are they going to, what do they do with all that pitching depth that they have? Nick, start with you.
Hard question, man. We have this conversation, I feel like once a week, basically. Like, what's the
Well,
goal going forward? It's a great question, man. I think it's so hard because what do they do at the major league level, right? Because you still have Clark Schmidt coming back. I think we've had this conversation, man. There's 4 or 5 guys guaranteed to be here next year, regardless. You're gonna have Garrett Cole, Luis Heel, Clark Schmidt, Carlos Rodon. Those guys are guaranteed. I'm pretty sure
yeah.
they bring back Stroman. You know what I mean? Could I see them let Stroman go? Maybe maybe it's more, talked about now than it was a couple of weeks ago when you kept trying to propose it. But I mean, Nestor Cortez, I think Cortez is gone. I think Cortez will get traded in the offseason 100%. But I mean, in this scenario, you have all those other pitching prospects that need a spot to play, and you do have some open bullpen spots. I can see some of them going there, but I think there are a couple of them that they're just looking at and saying they're you're not a bullpen starter, you're a starter. But you're going to be depth for right now until somebody gets injured.
What about Chase Hampton? Do you think he could end up in a bullpen role to start his career?
I think he's a starter, man. I think it sucks because he was a kid that I was expecting before this injury, this last injury. He was a kid I expected to end up in the Arizona Fall League and then come back, be a AAA, and be ready to come right up to major leagues, man. I thought it was pretty close. Like he was looking really good. And they said every time you jump up about 5 or 10 pitches per start, and then it would eventually. I felt like it was going to move over to the Arizona Fall League. He would pitch there, and then he would come over and probably be a top 50 prospect in baseball because I thought he was going to dominate over in the Arizona Fall League before this injury. So I'm interested to see what they do because now you have Lalane who's looking like he's injured. The fastball sat 88 to 92 yesterday. That was rough. And then you got LaGrange too, man, who's another dude that I think he has unbelievable potential. He's probably one of the kids I like to see in the Arizona Fall League too. So you have those guys as well, man. So the question is now, my next real question would be, who are you doing with the Arizona Fall League? Not what's going to happen at the major league level yet, because that will tell me who the Yankees really are keeping their eye on. Because they send at least 1 or 2 guys to the Arizona Fall League that they really like.
Yeah, Bobby.
I mean, I think when you were talking through this, the first thought in my head is, I could see Tonkin get traded in this winter. Remember when Lukey got traded a few years ago and they got brought by Durbin? I bet you're going to see Cash make some trades this winter to clear out some space and bring back some players in return. But the fact is, they have so many arms, and the way I think they look at it is for every 10 arms, if you get 2 quality or 3 quality, you're lucky because they're going to either break down or something's going to happen. And then you have the Rule 5 draft coming up. So I don't know if
Messenger, D's.
Right.
Uh,
I could see, them packaging some because you're bringing in a big crop of 13 pitchers from this year's draft. You're going to have to find room, right?
Right.
So where you put them and who gets moved, could they be? I think the most fascinating thing, at least for me, this winter is how they're going to construct the bullpen, because
Right.
I think it's Soto and like the bullpen and pretty much it. And when you have all these kind of prospects, you could always move them for right now, look at their 2 lefties in the bullpen, Tim Hill and who just got brought up this afternoon,
Tim
right?
Meza.
I mean, they absolutely help. I mean, I don't foresee that they might. I mean, they speak very high of Clay Holmes. Do they offer him 4 years, $60 million? Probably not. I mean, I do think they package some of these pitchers, just my personal opinion, and either trade for a young relief pitcher, whether it's Duran from Minnesota or who's the guy from San Francisco, Duvall.
Duvall.
Yeah. One of those guys where they bring in a relief pitcher because the values are in the 15 to 25 range. That's doable, but I think that's how they move on because they just don't have the money, so they have to have a cheap bullpen, and they have the arms to do it. My only thing is this: who's the hard throwers down there, right? I'm talking about on the AA and in the AAA. I mean that they desperately need Rauselman, right? I mean,
Reiselman, yeah.
I mean, besides him, I mean, the rest of them are like 92 to 95 types.
Yeah, Zach can get it up to about 96 as a starter.
We're not seeing those 97, 98, 99s, and that's what they desperately need.
Yeah. Rob, what about you?
I never know what they're going to do when it comes to pitching because they've traded so many pitchers over the past, 4 years. Going back to 2021, and there was the 2022 deadline where Waldichuk and Wesneski and Medina and all those guys were dealt. Just this past deadline, I thought the one guy that which was, to me, was a lock to be in this bullpen was Neely, and they traded him. So you never know. Yeah, you never know what their thought process is with some of these guys, but I think that's why they keep drafting so many pitchers, because the one thing they're doing very well is developing them into guys that other teams are going to look at and say, hey, we want that. Because I can't think of a pitcher that we've traded in the past maybe 4 years that we're saying we missed that guy. At least a guy that we've developed. You could say, oh, we missed Michael King, but we got Juan Soto back. But you look at the other pitchers we gave up in that trade. Do we miss Brito? Do we miss Vasquez? Are we really missing Drew Thorpe right now? Do we miss Waldichuk, Wesneski? I mean, I don't think any of us miss those guys,
I
but
miss Wisniewski. I miss Wesneski.
So do I. And JP Sears is another guy I'd really like to have in our bullpen right now too.
I mean, yeah, you could say like we can use them at certain points, but I just don't know what they're going to do with. There's so many pitchers, and you would like for that at least like 2 or 3 of them to develop into good major league starters. Selvage is my favorite guy, but now he's hurt. Hampton's another great one. He's hurt. Beater is hurt. There's so many of these guys that we've talked about for this entire year that are now hurt and dealing with injuries, and there's so much uncertainty with pitching. It makes you wonder if they will go that route. They develop them to where other teams start to recognize that, hey, this is a good prospect, and we trade them for major league talent now, major league ready talent now. So if that's a guy like even an Andrew Nardi that's under team control for multiple years, we give up prospects for him. That's something they might do because they're not going to spend on this bullpen. That's one thing they probably don't need to do is spend big money on the bullpen because more times than not, Blake is turning some of these projects into solid arms. Look at Jay Cousins. Look at Tonkin even. Who would have saw those two guys being two of our best arms? So at some point, I like to see some of these players develop into something good for us, but it just seems like they're going to keep this cycle repeating itself where they draft, develop, and trade. And that's what they've been doing for years. And I don't think it's going to stop for quite some time. And they might have to go that route for starting pitching because the last 2 big contracts they've handed out, Rodon and Stroman, haven't yet paid off the way they thought. It's almost $50 million between the two of them. And Luis Heal's been better than both of them, and he's making a fraction of what those two guys make. So the money and the injuries to pitchers might steer them away from the big contracts for the arms, and they might keep developing and trading. But at some point, you got to give one of these guys a shot. Who is that going to be? I don't know. But like Nick said, if they send somebody to the Arizona Fall League, you know they like them because that's usually what they do. When you see them in the Fall League, you're like, the Yankees have a plan for this kid. So we'll see if they send any of those arms, which they probably will. But there's also the Rule 5 draft. We lost several guys this past year. We could potentially move them before that Rule 5 draft just to get something back. So there's so many arms, not enough spaces for them, and we're bringing in 13 picks. Something's going to happen this offseason. It could be a busy offseason for under the radar, not the splashy move, but just to clear up some spots and fill up this bullpen because that's really the biggest need on this team after Juan Soto.
The two guys that I really see moving into the bullpen, Clayton Beater and Reiselman. I think those two guys could be elite bullpen arms. Clayton obviously can start. He proved that early in the year because he was absolutely dominating AAA. But realistically, there's not a spot for him. But if you put him in the bullpen, I think he can be a dominant back-end reliever. And Reiselman looks like he's a flat stud. On the level we haven't developed out of the bullpen in a long, long time. I think those two guys can fill holes right away in that bullpen.
Yeah, I think I just want to make a point. Like I'm tired of trading with the Cubs, man. We literally traded Wesneski and we traded what's his name? Neely, who literally looks like a legitimate closer right now. And they're starting him at he's their closer in AAA now. He's gonna come up, and I wouldn't be shocked if he dominates. Brian Cashman has to stop that nonsense right away. Like I'm telling that too. Like that needs to stop, man. Like stop trading with them. Like I think that for relievers recently outside of like the garbage pen guys that he gets, they've been bad. So if he makes a big trade for a reliever, it's been bad. If he makes a trade for a starter, it's been bad. Like so I agree with Rob, man. We need to start seeing what we have in our young team and trust in our development, man, at the end of the day. I think our development kind of, we have our own kind of mindset, and I feel like that's what, you know, Matt Blake is better at. He's not good at taking a pitcher that already is set in stone in his way and trying to grow him because they always get worse. You need to either give him the garbage pieces or you need to give him somebody that as development wise. And in terms of beater, I've said it to you before, you literally with a one dude jumping up and down screaming Luis Heel for closer, Luis Heel for closer, and he's
I
looked
wasn't
great as
saying
a starter.
closer. I was saying if he develops that changeup, he's an elite starter. Otherwise,
But you told me that. You've been telling everybody that, man. This show, I could play 10 hours worth of feedback of you telling me he's the top of the line relief pitcher. But at the end of the day, man, he's a starter and he's killing it. And that's the way I feel about Beater. I think Beater can start because he gets swing and miss stuff. As long as he's healthy, the same way with Luis Hill, you're perfectly fine, man. And you're not. I don't think his control is as bad as Luis Hill's is. But Luis Hill also throws 99, so people are going to swing because they can't blink fast enough to swing on that. So.
Right. But going back to Beater just a little bit, he needs that third pitch that he has not shown he has. That changeup has been inconsistent. The arm slot is way different. And the release point, it's a dead giveaway when he's throwing. It's not even a show me pitch. It's a get me over pitch, basically. And if he can develop that, yeah, I agree. He's a starter. But as we've talked about, there is not a whole lot of spots in that rotation to give him a spot. So why not start him in the bullpen where we actually have a need? And if we need to move him into the rotation eventually, do the same thing.
I think you'll see a lot of guys in that role because we've already talked about Warren potentially being that swing man, that extra starter, the guy that can give you length. I mean, Yoendrys Gomez for a few opportunities this year was giving you multiple innings, but he's being used as a starter in AAA. I believe he's starting tonight, so I don't know what their plan is with him. That's another guy that has decent stuff, but you don't know what they really want to do with him. I think he's out of options after this year as well, but they're going to have some tough decisions to make because not everybody's going to be able to go bullpen to rotation and be able to make that switch and make it look easy. I think we got kind of lucky that Clark Schmidt made that transition going from starter in the minors to being in the bullpen in the majors and then going right to the rotation and being solid. Before he got hurt, he was probably our second best pitcher outside of Heel. So I don't know if you want to keep playing that game. A couple of these guys are going to have to be in the bullpen because of who's under contract next year. But when Stroman's off the books, I think I do agree with everybody that Nestor's going to be gone after this year. So that would leave Cole, Rodon, who are both going to be 2 years older at that point. What is Luis Heel going to be in 2 years? That's not really a set in stone thing. So I do believe there are going to be some spots open. And then what is Clark Schmidt? Is he going to be a guy that they think about re-signing because he's only got a couple of years or 3 years left, I think, of arbitration. So what is his role here for the future? He's pushing 30. Do they want to sign him past the age of 30? There's a lot of questions. So there's going to be opportunities for a lot of these guys, but they have to trust them before trading them. That's the one thing they have not done. Because if you want to look back, who are the arms that they've actually developed into solid starters? Montgomery, Severino before the injuries, and maybe Schmidt and hopefully Luis Heel, but that's a pretty small list considering how many pitchers that we've had that we've kind of been hyped about and have traded away.
Good point.
You know what I was going to say is that one thing I have learned all through these years is the players that we expect to get those positions don't usually get those positions, and the people who come out of nowhere. If you asked me 5 years ago about Nestor being in the rotation, everybody would think you're crazy, right?
Yeah.
Schmidt was down with injuries, and Heel's been down with injuries. It would not shock me. Like, I know they speak very like Ben Shields. I bring up his name.
Yeah.
He had that one spot start in AAA. It doesn't go unnoticed. He's supposed to be a very intelligent kid. He's got the age. I don't know if they put him in the Arizona Fall League this year, but his stats, if you look at it deep at his stats, if he's truly hitting 92 to 95, would not shock me at all coming to spring training next year that he is someone that they, when you have those garbage spring training innings, right? The ones who would at the end of spring training, you see 17, 18 innings, that kid has that, and that they give him that long. For a fact they're high on Will Warren, right? They're not doing this stuff.
No.
If they were not high on him. So they're going to give him as much opportunity as possible. But I think the players that we think that they may give the opportunity for are not necessarily the ones they think. and the ones that actually come to fruition.
Agreed. Now, moving into, I want to talk about Roderick Arias a little bit because Arias has started off the year and he was not looking good, either at the plate or defensively. Last, I believe Carlos put out a tweet the other day, last 250 innings, he's made one error at shortstop. He's looking much better defensively. The bat has come around a great deal. He's still in low A. Lombard obviously got the promotion, but are we feeling a little bit more optimistic about Roderick realizing his potential now? Nick, go ahead.
I never felt any unoptimism there. I mean, that's my guy, man. He'll always be my
Well, you
guy. I've been
broke the
better for
story about signing him when
It
he
don't
was.
matter. It doesn't matter. That's always been my guy. He's one of the nicest dudes you'll ever talk to, man. He all he does is care about baseball, man. Uh, at the end of the day, I got yelled at, and that's how we broke that story, man. That like, everybody wants to talk about Roderick, but nobody, I haven't heard anybody tell a story about how he didn't make an error for the past 190 innings at shortstop. And when I said that, I told you guys that we came out with the story. We broke that because obviously we looked into it, and it's true. At the end of the day, I mean, he's a very, very elite shortstop talent, and the Yankees are blessed to have a kid like that in this system. Has he struggled? Like I said, yes, man. And I'm happy he struggled because it happens and people grow and learn from it. You don't want somebody to run through and hit 400 all the way up to AAA and then they get to the
Right.
majors and they're hitting 200 and they don't know what struggling is. So you know what? At the end of the day, I'm happy he struggled, man. He's seeing it. And I think he hit a home run yesterday, left-handed, beautiful swing. I think it's coming together a little bit better. And he's a kid that I'm just extremely high on in terms of hitting his ceiling for the Yankees. And I think next year you're going to see him break out and probably make Double A, even if possibly even Triple A. But there's talk that the Yankees see him maybe at making the majors around 22. So we'll see how it works out. But at the end of the day, man, I'm excited for him, and I don't think they're going to move him off a shortstop. So that's going to be the conversation we have with Volpe and Roger Garris.
We had talked about Roderick possibly being the long-term shortstop starting the year, and then he kind of went through some struggles. You still have him as the shortstop of the future if he realizes his potential.
There's nobody has that arm talent, man. That kid's arm is an unreal cannon. There's nobody, and his errors, if you look at it, and I think even Brophy said it, they're manageable errors. They're dumb errors, so they're easy to clean up.
Glaber errors.
Yeah, no, not Glaber, because those are not easy to clean up because that's the mindset. It's not the mindset. It's just been a lack of attention to detail on certain things that it will get better with age, not where it was just being lazy. They're two different kind of errors, and Glaber's a lazy error.
The only thing that I question, and this is all respect, Nick, because I know much you love him, right? The only thing I question is how come the love isn't there around the game? And I just looked this up. Like, how is it that he's not on 100 the top? Like he was the number one or two in that class, right? How
Yes.
is Marco Mayer? Is that his name
Yeah.
from Boston? How is it?
Marcelo Mayer.
Yeah, right. How is he not? Remember, Arias is 2 years younger, which is right a bigger thing. But how come that love isn't there around the game? And I just looked at Arias stats. The stats are for a 19-year-old, 9 home runs, 28 steals. I don't care about the strikeouts and stuff. It's got like what a 225 back. And you're talking about his elite defense. That's the thing that worries. I don't want to say worries me, but makes me wonder how is a guy like Marco so high and Arias is not even on the top 100 list.
I'll address Marcelo. So automatically when
Marcelo, I'm
you're
sorry.
Yeah, Marcelo Meyer. So
I'm
Marcelo
sorry.
Meyer, man, is a draft prospect. He's 21
Yeah.
years old. He was drafted in the top five. Usually draft kids get hyped even more than international kids, unless the kid internationally is ranked as a god. If you see a kid, so I'll have a question. I'll say this. I'm not going to address any further, but I'll address it like this. So I was talking to somebody yesterday. Said, look, man, we gave Jason Dominguez $5 million. Said if I see you as a $5 million player, I see you as a generational talent. Said if I give you 4 million a little and up, I see you as a perennial all-star player, like that I think is going to be very, very great player, right? 3 million, I still think you're at the top of your class, and I see you as a couple of all-stars there, and you're going to be good. And then anything below you just take it as it goes. But like you're looking at a kid that was drafted 4th overall, got a $6.6 million signing bonus from the Red Sox. He struggled last year, if I'm not mistaken. He hit 236. He had a down year, but before that, he hit 275, he hit 280, and then all of a sudden he's hitting 307 at AA. I think he just got promoted to AAA. The reason why he's so high, man, is because one, he got a dip, and he's also a high end talent. Only had one struggle year. You look at Roderick. Roderick didn't play organized ball. A lot of the kids in the draft play organized ball until they're drafted. Doesn't matter. So you take an international kid, and I'm really going to break it down for you right now, Bobby. So you take an international kid that is uh, the top of their class. They're not going to go in and play in these tournaments once they're committed to a team. It's just not going to happen. So, for instance, the top kid next year is either going to be Elaine Pena or Josiar Gonzalez going either to the Mets or the Giants. They're not in competitions anymore. They're in training only. So when they come over, if a kid struggles for a little bit, it's because they're not playing organized baseball. Whereas a kid in high school, no matter what, they're going to get drafted based on a ranking. There is no way that you can commit to a team early. They're going to continue to play up until they get drafted. So that kid's always been organized ball. So of course, the kid that's internationally is going to struggle a little bit more when he comes over and finally starts playing competition that's pretty close to A ball. Next year, if Roderick's struggling again, and I think everything looks like that, I think you could say, hey, what's going on with Roderick Arias? But one struggle year is not a bad thing. Plus, he got injured twice,
No,
and
it's
he
not
was
even,
on the cusp of a breakout at the FCL last year.
it's not even that it's struggling. Like I'm looking right over here, and you see the guy from the O's, Basillo, and you see Ethan Salas and stuff, they were all top. I mean, I'm just a little. I don't know how much love is around the game. That's the only thing. I'm not saying that he can't be a great player or anything like that. I just don't understand why the scouts around the league and multiple like BA and stuff don't have areas just because of his short athletic ability and defense ability, how he's not a top 100 prospect.
Because you're looking at the swing and miss game. I think that, and you're looking at the so a lot of these guys they go down there scout, but you're looking at one, you're looking at the swing and miss, and two, you're looking at the struggles defensively in terms of overall errors, right? Because a lot of people aren't at every single game. But I think we had Brophy on the other day, man, and Brophy like killed it for us too, because he said, look, I was talking to a scout from the Tampa Bay Rays. He said that kid Lombard, that kid Roderick, they're really good, man. We want basically we want them. So why
Like, yeah.
that's who I care to hear that from, because I'm gonna be honest, the Rays are one of the top organizations when it comes to finding that kind of talent. I don't really care what Baseball America has to say. I've seen Baseball America be wrong. Realistically, I'll be honest with you. I kind of like Fangraphs a little bit more than I like Baseball America. They're on it with the younger kids and
Oh
not
yeah,
Urania, but if
absolutely.
you have what's his name, the kid that the
Eaglin
Edwin
Perez.
Perez, yeah, they were on him before anybody else, man. So
And
they
graph is
really
great.
scout and
Mhm.
value, like. But I'll be blunt and honest with you, man. For saying that, why doesn't MLB.com have him on a top 100 list, or why doesn't this have somebody here? I mean, to be fair, Jason Dominguez was ranked at 50 and he was considered the Martian, right? But at the end of the day, he had his struggles and stuff and around baseball. But I think he's a top 5 prospect in all of baseball.
No, I agree. Listen, Nick, I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. I just find it very subjective how they look at certain international free agents. That was my point. It's really it's blatantly obvious, and everything you're saying about Fangraphs is absolutely true. But the hype also builds the value that builds possibly for trades. You know what I mean?
It's not, but it's hype about moving kids. Like look at San Diego, for example. Man, I was told that the 3 top international markets in baseball are the Yankees, San Diego, and the Rays. They're the best 3, hands down, at everything what they do. Very quick on everybody. Take a look at everything. San Diego pushed both of their number 1 overall kids in their class, and Ethan Salas and DeVries, up to A ball right away. DeVries hasn't struggled. Ethan Salas was killing it last year. I think he went up to AA last year, if I'm not
He did.
mistaken. And now he's absolutely horrible this year. Like, he's not even over 200 batting average. And I mean, are we going to sit here and say, well, that kid, all of the hype is gone now? No, man. I mean, a kid was 18 or 17 years old, jumping all the way up to AA. It's never been seen before, and performing. And then he had a down year. I want to see a kid struggle. I want to see
Yeah,
that.
for
Like,
the yeah,
it's
absolutely.
important to them to see how the bounce back is, because that tells me about your character. So.
It's a great
Rob,
point.
what about you?
I think Arias is going to be just fine. He's 19 years old, and again, everything that Bobby and Nick just said, everything's all spot on. You know, if he were to come here and just start hitting and playing Gold Glove defense, and he was hitting like 3-something with an 800 plus OPS, he's hitting home runs, he's stealing 30 plus bags, the hype around him would be through the roof, and he would be considered the future. And if the second he got here and struggled even in the slightest, there would be that conversation of, was he too overhyped, or should they have traded him when the value was right? All that kind of stuff. You need to see a player, especially at an age like that, who is a top prospect for us. You need to see the good and the bad. You need to see him go through those struggles, and how do they bounce back from it. I just said it earlier about Will Warren at the major league level. I wanted to see him struggle, because if he came up here and just blew us away, now it's like, how do we fit him in the rotation, and what's the plan? All these questions are going to come in. You need to see a young player go through the ups and downs, especially an international player coming over to a whole new country and playing a kind of a different game, because it's not the same thing. There's a reason they're as good as they are, but it is a different game. It's a whole new level of talent. When you get here, you want to see how they adjust to it. So if they're struggling, how do they adjust? How do they get better? How quickly do they get better? And if they're playing really well, when they eventually do hit that struggle, how long does it last, and when do they start to pick back up? All those things are important. So Arias is only an A ball right now. I agree with Nick. I think it could be very, very easy to see him in Double-A next year. And if Volpe defensively keeps up the way he is, there's going to be a conversation there. What do you do when Arias is here? But you know that defense of his, Roderick Arias' arm, it is unmatched. It is unmatched. It's amazing. So that's a conversation for the future. But I have no concerns about Arias. The fact that he's 19 and he's struggling, not struggling, the numbers aren't great, whatever you want to say, there's no reason to be worried about him. I think he's going to be just fine. I'm very excited about the future potential of him and Lombard in the same infield with Volpe. But that's, years away from now. But so far, I mean, the hype has been real, and it hasn't dipped in any way for me. I think he's going to be a very, very good player. And I think the sky's the limit for him. I've been saying that for him for a while. He's going to be very good. And so far, there's nothing that has shied me away from that thought.
One last topic we want to talk about: the players of the year in the system. We're looking at Ben Shields on the pitching side, who is an undrafted free agent. And we have a couple undrafted free agents that could be the hitters of the year on the position side. What does that say about what the Yankees do in their scouting of the undrafted free agent market? When's the last time we heard about an undrafted free agent being the top in the organization? Bobby, you start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to you about when we started the show. I mean, like,
right.
Just in an unprecedented year where you get both Shields. Now, I'm not saying these guys are going to win it, right? I was talking about Shields and Flores, but they're definitely in the top three, right? And even if you get two guys in the top three, I mean, let's see how Shields finishes the year, but he has a possibility of having some really eye-popping numbers. And Flores has just been on a tear where he's probably going to hit over 20 home runs. Shields is 20. I don't believe that the age thing. So let's just get out of the way. And Flores is 23. It's pretty amazing how well they've been drafting. Signing these undrafted free agents. This year's class, I know there's a guy, Parks Herbert, I believe, or Hubert, right?
Hubert.
And yeah, right. Who had great numbers at both Georgia and North Carolina, and Josh Moyhan, how do you say?
Yeah, Moyhan.
Yeah, was one last year, at East Carolina. So they're doing a great job. I think it's finding that talent, and then also you're developing that talent. But like I said, I don't know if those two guys actually win it, but they're definitely in the top three.
Rob, what about you?
I'm very happy that the system has developed the way it is, because we've jumped from a middle of the pack to top 10, top 7, and some websites will have us even top 5. And Ben Shields, he's come out of nowhere. Absolutely come out of nowhere. He's been fantastic. Has over 100 strikeouts and 86 6 innings or so. He's looked fantastic, and it goes into that earlier conversation we were having about the pitching. What do we do with all of these guys? Because it would not surprise me if one of the guys that we just drafted, who people were saying, oh, that dude's a reach. And that's the thing about the MLB draft is you never know. You really never know. You can see a guy, he had an ERA of 5 in college. Oh, why do they take this guy? Next thing you know, he's got like a mid-3 ERA, and he's being talked about as one of our top pitching guys. That's the way that things have kind of worked with the Yankees system. I think that really speaks to their development, and something that Brian Cashman said way back in the offseason, I think we're pretty effing good. Maybe he had a point to that. There was a lot of people that didn't like that comment, but the way they'd been developing some of these prospects to where other teams want their guys so badly. How many guys did we get taken away from us in the Rule 5? So teams like our prospects for a reason. The Cubs like them. I know Nick doesn't want to keep hearing it, but the Cubs certainly like our guys. But I just think it speaks to how they've been scouting, and that we should, as fans, just kind of trust their process more than we probably do. You know, maybe when it comes to the draft, I don't really say, "Oh, I wouldn't have took that guy." I just say, "Okay, well, they obviously see something like this past draft, a bunch of guys that don't throw necessarily hard, but they're big dudes with extension of the fastball." They had like a similar theme for a lot of their guys, so they clearly see something in these college kids that they can develop quickly and get them up sooner, or trade value build up sooner, and that's just the way they've been operating. But again, you're seeing undrafted kids develop into potential player of the year type of players. That's great. And that speaks volumes to how this organization has been developing over the past 5-6 years. So it's been fun to watch.
Nick, what about you?
Yeah, man, I give both the scouting departments all the credit in the world, man. International and domestic, man. They've done an unbelievable job. I give them a lot of credit. I think hats off to them. You know, I think that for us to have any form of undrafted kids come up and still, you know, produce and have that kind of talent is legit. I don't know if Flores gets an opportunity, you know, especially with where we are with catcher and first base. But I mean, the year he's having right now can't be overestimated. I mean, that kid is having an unbelievable year, man. I'm extremely excited to see what he continues to do. So yeah, from that standpoint of undrafted kids, I think the Yankees have done a really good job.
They have. Rob, tell everybody where we can find you and see your stuff during the week.
If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Rob_B5199. And Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm live with Donald and Uncle Tats on the Pinstripe Chronicles podcast on YouTube.
Make sure to check that out, guys. Bobby?
I'm always on Twitter. You know, anybody can find me over there.
Yeah, all right. Nick?
Yeah, man. One thing before I give it out, man. Two things I just want to address.
Sure.
Alexander Vargas.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
No, unreal year this year, man. Coming back, you know, I was told that it was going to take a little bit of time with Alexander Vargas. He's producing at Double-A. I think once they traded Cowles, he's now a starting shortstop over there in Double-A. He's only 22, and we've always known the defense could play. He's always got speed. It's all about power, and if it can start continuing to develop and he can continue to get better, I can see him having a major league role at some point. Got to give him his credit. And two, Wandy Asijan just made, again for the second year in a row, the U15 team to play there. So check out Wandy Asijan, our top 26 international free agent kid coming out as well. And I'm always on Instagram.
All right, guys. We have an IFA show that we're doing next week. We were going to do that this week, but Los wants to be a part of that. So be on the lookout for that. Hit that like and subscribe for Yankees Farm and Carlos. Thank you guys so much.
Have a great night, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.